We started talking yesterday, as we were going through the life of Rabbi Yosef Karo, about the Iyyun Sephardi, and that also connects to the idea of the semicha, of renewing the process of ordination of Hachamim, leading to the establishment of Sanhedrin that was attempted in the 1500s. But first, let us talk a little bit about what is called the Iyyun Sephardi, just briefly. Hopefully in the future we'll do a special session just on that, because it's really a very, very wide and important topic. So yesterday I mentioned that in the Ashkenazi Yeshivot there was a sort of a method to study every discussion in a way that could be interpreted endlessly. I mean, there's no end to the discussion. There's no resolution or conclusion with the discussion. It's always left open-ended, meaning it's possible that this is the meaning or that is the meaning. It's not similar to the open-endedness of the halacha that I mentioned with Rabbi Yosef Karo. Rabbi Yosef Karo would say in the shulchan-aruch you have one of two or three options to follow, but they're all valid. Whereas in the study of the Sugya and the Talmud, they would say we don't really know what the meaning is. So you would, in many cases, would feel if it has to do with halacha, maybe that opinion is right. Maybe then I'm afraid to do something that will be an offense according to one opinion, and that led eventually in the Ashkenazi world to be more strict, because you're always afraid maybe what I'm doing is wrong. There's always this doubt. There's no final conclusion. So some of the elements of the Sephardic Iyyun that are important. First of all, in the Sephardic Yeshivot, this is from the time of the Geonim in Babylonia through the Yeshivot in Spain and Portugal, and even after the expulsion, those who went to the Ottoman Empire and other parts, the curriculum in the yeshiva included language. I mean, you had to learn the grammar of Hebrew, poetry, or at least elements of poetry, writing. You needed to know how to write correctly, and the local language. So Sephardic rabbis always had to know the language of the country that they lived in. It was important. It was considered part of the curriculum. Some places mathematics or music or other what we call general studies or core studies today were part of the schedule. Also, another important thing is when you approach the study of the Jewish texts themselves. First of all, you had to have a solid knowledge of Tanakh. Not only the Chumash, but the Chumash, Nevi'im, Ketuvim, you need to know the whole thing. And that is, first of all, it enhances the knowledge of the Hebrew language, enhances the understanding of prayers, because a lot of the tefillot are connected to the biblical language, but also gives people perspective of, within the Tanakh, what are the different levels of obligations, what are the things that the prophets are concerned about. It gives you a good perspective of what is the worldview of the Torah when we look at the highest level, which is the Word of God, included in the Tanakh. After they studied Tanakh, they had to go through Mishnayot, and after the Mishnah, they would study the Talmud, but the Talmud would be side by side with Halakha. So the benefit of that system was that as the students advanced, they got a structured understanding of the development of Jewish law. They know what is written in the Torah, how it was codified in the Mishnayot, how is it written in the Talmud. Not only that, when it's a requirement that you study all of the Mishnah. Remember when we spoke about the Mishnah is a sort of a summary of all the laws that were learned by Midrash Halacha. So now you learn all of that, and you get an understanding of the language of the Mishnah. And you study all of the Talmud, you get an understanding of the language of the Talmud. It's a certain, almost like say lingo or jargon, that once you get into it, you get the nuances. And when something is not right, you also get it. And meanwhile, if you only learn one section or one fragment, you don't get the full view. in the Ashkenazi yeshivot, and even today it's definitely has become the norm in the Ashkenazi yeshivot, is that out of the whole Talmud, the 2 or 3 tractates are chosen from each order. Basically, what you study in the yeshivot is Masechet Sukkah, Masechet so Shabbat is studied, Bava Kama, Bava Metziah, but the laws of damages basically are studied, and Sanhedrin, Shavuot, and Hulin, and several other Masechtot. And in Nashin, you Gitin, Ktubot, Yevamot, and Kiddushin. Those are like you could say 1/3 of the Masechtot are studied in the yeshivot, and even those, when they study, sometimes they would spend in the yeshiva. I mean, I also, when I was in a yeshiva where the teaching method was Ashkenazi, Litvak, we would spend a month on 2 pages in the Talmud, 2 or 3 pages in the Talmud. Meanwhile, my friends who went, I remember I studied Masechet Yevamot in the yeshiva. Yevamot deals with the levirate law, the laws of Yibum and all that. It's a very complicated tractate in the Talmud. We were in the middle of maybe 7th page in the Gemara. My friend who studied in Porat Yosef at the time, and the Hacham ben Zion Abba Shaul, says we've already accomplished like 60 or 70 pages, and we go line by line, cover everything. Now, what is the benefit of that? This is like I said, the comprehensive view. There is a very important book, I think it's called, in my opinion, it's important, Blink, by Malcolm Gladwell. Wrote several very, very enlightening books on the psychology of people, decision makings, crowd wisdom, and so on. In Blink, what he says is that when you are an expert on a certain subject, you have a blink moment, meaning that you could grasp in 1 second the true nature of a thing. And this example that he brings is, the first example, very interesting, is that of an ancient Greek statue that was discovered in the 1970s or 80s and was sold to the Getty Museum in Los Angeles. I think now it's in the Getty Villa in Malibu. So, but anyway, the Getty Institute bought the statue, but before they bought it, they had to verify with experts that it's authentic. They did all the possible tests, chronometry, with the length, frequency of colors, chromatic, whatever it is, C14, X-ray, and all that. And the funny thing was, all the scientific results, the technical, physical results said that the statue is authentic, but all the experts on Greek art said it's not authentic. Like the leading experts said, and they're still debating it, and someone said that if they try to figure out now why they say it's not authentic, is because there are certain deviation from the regular proportion between the nose and the rest of the body, as it is usually in Greek sculpture. So what happens here? It probably is a forgery, but the forger is a very, very sophisticated one, and he was able to fool everyone. But there are certain things that the original sculpture would have never done, and you only know that after you've seen hundreds and thousands of these pieces of art. So now you intuitively it's not right. So that is the idea of the.
So what happened?
They still have it there.
Than original, or?
They still have it there, and I think they'd rather not talk about that. And so, give another example is that when you think about Bill Gates and Microsoft, or the Beatles and their music, how they were so successful. He says it's really, you need the intuition, but you need hard work. The hard work is a result of, he calculated more or less 10,000 hours of investing in doing certain thing. He says the Beatles, before they broke into international recognition, played together for 10,000 hours. They were playing in Germany, in Europe, consistently, and then they hit that sort of sweet spot. Same with Bill Gates. Before he created Windows, he used to sit with programming machines that were not available to everyone at the time and write codes incessantly. So you get to a certain point, and I know for sure that this is true. I studied programming for a couple of years when I was in high school in the previous century. But the same what happens with mathematics. The same happens with the Gemara, with everything. You develop at a certain point the ability to know the language even without going into details, and then you have this intuitive grasp of the text. So if someone studied, like in the Sephardic yeshivot, that was a requirement. You studied the whole Gemara from the beginning to end. So now you know the language, you know the text, you know the style. If something is out of place, you can put your finger on it. That was Iyyun Sfaradi. And now Iyyun Sfaradi was a combination of what is we call Sinai v'Akarim, of comprehensive knowledge and analysis. So now you sit with the text and analyze it line by line. You look at the structure of the sugya of the discussion in the Talmud, and you have to be able to sort through it to say this is the core discussion, this is a side issue, this is a digression, this is and in that manner you analyze the sugya. Also, when they debated it in the or studied it in the study hall, it was an open discussion. The rabbi would ask the students to read, and then say, how do you understand the text? And they would come with their understanding. And then if he has to correct them, he corrects them. If not, if they're correct, he shows it to others. So they have the chance to go into the sugya themselves. Meanwhile, in the Ashkenazi yeshivot, there was an approach of get the brightest and the most brilliant to develop discourses, like they give a lecture, and that the lecture is meant to wow everyone, to leave everyone in awe. Wow, the rabbi he could deliver this, he would put 100 references and would tie them all together. It's more like mental acrobatics. Now, and no practical results. And another important element is, and that's one of probably the last rabbis who still teaches in this method is Rabbi Meir Mazuz, the head of Rishvat Kisara Habim in Bnei Brak, who was originally from Jerba. So he writes, he has a small book called the Iyyun, which we'll probably will have to go through at a certain point. He says he read once in a book written by an Ashkenazi Litvak rabbi, contemporary rabbi, a very long pilpul, a very long discussion on possible interpretation of the words of the Talmud, and he says it's brilliant in its intellectual prowess and all that. He says at the end of this whole discussion, which takes a couple of pages, the rabbi writes, "Aval la'alacha nir'a she'eno ken." Like what my conclusion from this analysis doesn't go along with the halacha, with the law. So Rabbi Mazuz complains, says, "Aval pilpul nishar b'sefer." He says, but you still wrote the whole analysis. If it's not according to halacha, it means it's not true. Discard it. All of this is abstract. It doesn't mean anything. And that's why he's upset with you. You get distracted by discussion that lead nowhere. It's just like going into a labyrinth,
Like a board meeting.
Yeah. You go into a maze, right? You could go into a maze for the fun of it. There, all over the country, there are mazes, gardens and corn mazes, and okay, you go for the fun. You went in, you got out. What did you get? You get the thrill of the adventure. But if you need to go through the maze to go to the other side to get the prize, that's something that really is worth it. But there's no prize at the end. You go one end, you get through the other end. Okay, I've been through the maze, or I built it myself. What Rabbi Mazuz did in his yeshiva, which really produced some of the greatest poskim and analysts that we have today, including Rabbi Moshe Levi, who wrote, I think, the best book on Ilchot Shabbat called Benuchat Ahava. He died. He passed away at a young age, unfortunately, in his 40s. The Rabbi Moshe Levi. So what the system in the yeshiva is this. He says that the students must write responsa in halakha, meaning the rabbi presents them with halachic questions, with cases that he either makes up or pulls out from the existing literature, and he asks them to write a deliberation to argue why the law should be this or that. So it's not the question of either the multiple choice or what does the shulchan-aruch or this rabbi say in case of this and that. He says this is not learning. This is memorizing and spitting it out. We all know, either we did it ourselves or when our children were in high school, right? We know that they memorize everything the day before the test. They spit it out on the test, and you ask them a month later, they know nothing. Rabbi Mazuz, in the spirit of the Sephardic Iyyun, wanted to develop this independence and the ability to analyze texts that are brought to you. So the students write their teshuvot, they write their discussions, and Rabbi Mazuz reviews them, writes his commentaries, or other rabbis in the yeshiva give it back to them to rewrite. And I've seen it either in Hebrew or in English with high school students, with yeshiva students that lack the ability to write with clarity. This is so important, to write with clarity. Now, what is the yardstick for clarity? It's a very interesting thing. Rabbi Mazuz writes this. He says, if you need more words to explain the original text, if your explanation is much lengthier than the original text, then you didn't do anything. I mean, if there's one, difficult word or concept, yes, but when it takes you 100 words to explain 10, then you're wrong. It has to be concise. So, and it says also that describing the process of clarity in thought and in writing, this is what we have to think of. In many cases, we have, let's say we studied a certain matter, or it could be a technical matter, how to put, a part back into the car, or to build something, or, could be an academic concept, or Talmud. It applies everywhere. It says, the first stage of understanding is that it's in your mind. In your mind, you have an idea of how it has to be. He says, this is beautiful. But now, verbalize it. Say it. Right? And it's funny, sometimes my kids would play this game with other, write directions of how to make a cup of coffee. Let's see. So say, make a cup of coffee. We all know how to do it, right? But try to write the directions. Okay, now boil water, put the coffee. Now, if you don't know the house, walk into, turn it right, open the... So there's a whole, you have to know how to make things. Anyway, first you have to have it in mind, then you have to verbalize it, and you have to explain it to a friend. Because there's a difference between the way you understand it, because when I understand something, I know the certain background that the other one might not have. So you have to bring him into his understanding. Now that you explain it to that person, still you're not done. You have to write it down. Write it down, and then go over it and clean it. And then, and I see them like myself. I've been writing for many, many years, but for the last 2 years, I'm writing daily. And at a certain point, I said, okay, I think I wrote about this topic in the past. I'm pulling something that I wrote 5 or 6 or 10 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, this is not good. The more you write, the more you get a sense of how to trim the sentence and make it clear. And that's important. It's a practice. If you want to become a posek, if you want to write the halacha, you have to train yourself in doing that. And that's what they did in the yeshivot. So that's where the Iyyun Sephardi, that was the idea. Today, there's a convergence of concepts between the Ashkenazi and the Sephardic world. Baruch Hashem, on one hand, the Ashkenazi yeshivot are adopting some of the Sephardic style, and unfortunately, on the other hand, the Sephardic world has lost some of its knowledge. So we have to find. I'll give you a good example for that of how the Ashkenazi world has sort of adopted these rules. Several years ago, I was asked to give a talk in the Tiferet Israel, Sharith Israel, the Spanish-Portuguese synagogue in Manhattan. They had a Siyum Hashas when there was so I was asked to give a talk on the Iyyun Sephardi, on that topic. And I thought, okay, I'm going to use a book that I used to study when I was in yeshiva, called Lechem Abirim. Lechem abirim, literally means the food of nobility, but it's the description of the manna, of the man. And it was written by Rabbi Yitzhak Hai Tayyib, a Tunisian rabbi. Now, when I was in yeshiva, nobody used this book. Only me and my friend Eliyahu Uzan, who was also Tunisian, and we would go to Keser Hamim, so we got this book. And we hear the class from the rabbi, Rabbi Hochman. It was like, Litvak, Pilpul, and all that. 3 hours class, and and it's written in 10 pages in one of the leading books that you read in like Haim Ovadia or the Hidushei Agriz, Rab Naftali Trop, all these books. So we read that. It's a 10 pages discussion. We go to the Lechem Abirim, we compare notes, we come back to the rabbi and says, you see this? What you said in the shiur 3 hours and takes 10 or 20 pages in this book is summarized here in 3 lines. He would flip out. It's unbelievable. How is that possible? It's written with such clarity that you cannot believe. But we were the only ones using the book. I mean, not among the Ashkenazi yeshivot, very, very few. So now I was asked to give the talk, and I haven't seen the book in years. I called my son, who's now in Lakewood, and I said, you know where I could get the book? He said, it's in all the yeshivot. Now it became mainstream. So thank God, those are changed. Anyway, we'll continue why we segue today to talk about the Sephardi is that we're talking about this period in the life of Rabbi Yosef Karo when he came to Tzfat, and that was the time when Rabbi Yaakov Beirav lived in Tzfat, and Rabbi Yaakov Beirav tried to renew the institution of Semicha and to ordain rabbis that will be the beginning of a new institution in Eretz Israel, like the new Sanhedrin, and they will have the authority to legislate and to administer punishment if necessary. And he thought that would be the beginning of Geula. And one of the great strengths of Rabbi Yaakov Beirav is that he taught along the lines of the Sephardic Iyyun. That's why we spoke about it today. B'ezrat Hashem on Sunday we'll talk about this whole idea of the Semicha. Next week. Baruch Adonai.